DJ Scream, heavy in the streets.
We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood. We gon' get it, we gon' get it, we gon' get it. We gon' get it, we gon' get it. Get it in blood. Get it in blood.
Hood rich.
Get it out the mud.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Saints and Appetizers podcast. And this evening, we have some appetizers for you. We're going to go over the results of UFC 307. UFC 307, Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree Jr. And this event happened October 5th, 2024, so this past Saturday at the Delta Center in Salt Lake City, Utah, United States. There was 17,487 in attendance, and there was 5 million total at the gate. Let's just start off by saying, it seems like just a couple cards here and there since UFC 300 have had kind of decent cards and lineups, and this was the first one in a while that I thought I was pretty excited for and thought was pretty good from like top to bottom. But I still think the main card kind of underperformed. It was almost if it wasn't for the corner stoppage for Kevin Hollins and then the late knockout by Khalil Rountree Jr., this would have been two pay-per-views in a row where every fight went to unanimous decision. These cards where they're doing that and freaking aren't over till midnight, 1 in the morning. That's just it's not really that enjoyable to watch, and you kind of want your money back afterwards. But the preliminary card was good. There were some good fights and good stoppages and notable names on the preliminary card, like Court McKee, submission neck crank Tim Means, Ryan Spann, guillotine choked Ovin St. Peru, and maybe the best fight on the card was the preliminary card main event, which was the welterweight bout between Joaquin Buckley versus Stephen Thompson, which that was a great fight. That was really back and forth the whole way, and it kind of seemed like maybe Stephen Thompson was winning that fight 2 minutes and 17 minutes into the third round. But then Joaquin Buckley, who had been throwing like these haymaker bombs, like he was throwing like 2 or 3 every round trying to land one, but was never landing one. Every time he was throwing one, he was ended up basically like punching the cage. But finally, he caught Stephen Wonderboy Thompson with one of those just absolute devastating haymakers and just completely slumped him, and was nice enough not to lay any more damage on the 41-year-old Stephen Thompson. But Joaquin Buckley looks very impressive at welterweight now that he's dropped down to a more fitting weight, because he dropped down a weight class and he still even looked small compared to Stephen Thompson, but it didn't matter. But yeah, it's arguable that was the best fight on the card. But anyways, let's get into the main card a little bit, stuff that we kind of went over a little bit more in the previous preview of this card. But anyways, let's get into this. So can I get a menu? And so this women's bantamweight bout, which could easily be considered like a title eliminator bout between Kayla Harrison versus Caitlin Vieira, which I was really excited for this fight. Like I was maybe as excited for this fight as I was for the Alex Pereira Khalil Rountree fight. So I had high hopes for this, and I was wanting to see Kayla Harris woman handle Caitlin Vieira and get the submission, but we didn't get that. It ended up being a decision, unanimous, 30-27, 30-27, and then a 29-28. And I've just now seen some reports that Kayla Harrison, I guess, was sick, had to be hospitalized a couple days before this event, and that leads me to thinking like, how is how did she not have to? If she's going into uh, going into the hospital because she's so drained and dehydrated. Like how did they just not give her um, an IV, which is that's you're not allowed to do that. But I guess she didn't. But I find it hard to believe if you're going into the hospital because you're so drained and dehydrated that they just don't give you an IV, which you can't do that to rehydrate in the UFC. But uh, maybe that's what led to kind of a unimpressive performance by Kayla Harrison, but I mean she still won unanimous decision, and she looked good kind of in the first round. Was able to get Caitlin Vieira on the ground and finish on the ground with a couple finish that round on the ground with a couple good ground and pound and some pretty vicious elbows that she landed. And then in the second round, she wasn't really able to get Caitlin Vieira down. And if you're just kind of going off of damage from that round, you definitely have to give it to Caitlin Vieira for that because she landed a really nice hard elbow right on Kayla Harrison's forehead, and that went right after it happened, and before she was able to get to the cut man and get some inswell and stuff on that, she looked like a damn unicorn there for a while. So if you're just going off of that, you could say that Caitlin Vieira did win the second round because not a lot else happened in that round besides Caitlin Harrison trying to get a hold of Kayla Harrison trying to get a hold of Caitlin Vieira and try to take her down. But Caitlin Vieira, she did a good job of avoiding that in the second round. So that's where I see that there's two of the judges had it 30-27, 30-27. So giving her all the rounds. But I agree more with the judge that gave one of the rounds to Caitlin Vieira 29-28. And then the third and final round, it was very similar to the first round, where there's kind of a filling out process, a little bit of stand up and striking, and then Kayla Harrison was able to get Caitlin Vieira down and have some ground and pound and land some nice elbows from the ground and end up finishing the fight on top. So I definitely, Kayla Harrison definitely won this fight, but I wouldn't say it was like an overly impressive fashion, but I guess you have to take into account that I guess she was sick, had to go to the hospital, so maybe she is having a harder time cutting weight than we think. And that no wonder we think it's so hard for someone that's 160, 165 to literally cut like 30 pounds to get down to 135. But I think you have to take into account that Caitlin Vieira was not some pushover either. Like she was a highly ranked opponent coming into this fight. She was like what number three women's bantamweight, and she had fought Raquel Pennington, who was the current champion, Misha Tate, Holly Holmes. Like she's fought some notable names. So maybe some of those fights against some of those names like Holly Holmes and Misha Tate, maybe that was kind of after they were kind of past their prime, but still she had some fights against some notable names, and she was ranked right up there with the top fighters. So she wasn't a pushover, and she definitely displayed that and showed that she could hang in there with Kayla Harrison and not allow her to get a hold of any arm or get any type of choke on her, which is what I was predicting. I was predicting that Kayla Harrison was going to get a submission, most likely some type of choke, but we didn't get to see that. All right, so now on to the second fight is on the card was a middleweight bout between Roman Dolidze versus Kevin Holland. And this fight went kind of how I expected it to before it went to a TKO corner stoppage. It was just kind of a filling out process in the striking game. And then, you could say that Kevin Holland's got quite a bit of a slight edge in the stand up and the striking game to where Roman Dolidze decided to start going for takedowns, and he was able to get Kevin Holland down with a takedown, and Kevin Holland wasn't able to get back up easily. But while Roman Dolidze had him on the ground, he didn't really land any type of ground and pound, or Kevin Holland wasn't close to being caught in a submission or anything. But towards the end of the round, Kevin Holland had an opportunity to like scramble and change his position on the ground or to try to stand back up. And I guess he hurt his rib. I don't know if he broke it, and I'm not sure if you can dislocate a rib, but he had a rib injury. And man, he seemed like really frustrated in between the rounds. And finally, his coach, thankfully, stopped it for him because you knew Kevin Holland wasn't gonna give up on a fight or pull out of a fight. So thankfully, his corners kind of threw in the towel for him and kind of protected him from himself. But that was a disappointment, just because we didn't get to see fully how that fight was going to play out. But it was kind of playing out how I expected it to. To see who has the better striking and then who kind of defers to starting to go for takedowns, and that was Roman Dolidze, like we expected. But definitely never want to see a fight stop due to injury, an injury that wasn't caused by offense from their opponent. So that's what I almost like completely forgot about that fight just because of the way it ended. But there for a while, I was thinking, man, are we going another pay-per-view, two pay-per-views in a row where every fight goes to unanimous decision? Because I was thinking that towards the end of the fourth round with Pereira, Alex Pereira, and Khalil Rountree. But yeah, that wouldn't, even if that fight would have went 5 rounds, that still the Roman Dolidze Kevin Holland's fight didn't go all 3 rounds. Now then, on to the bantamweight bout between Mario Batista versus Jose Aldo. And it ended up being a split decision. It was 28-29, 29-28, 29-28, and that was a 3-round fight. And really, just with Jose Aldo being, I'm going to say, because he's 38 years old, like I don't understand why really he was on the main card. And maybe it's just more of a stepping stone or a gatekeeper for Mario Batista, because that's kind of what it felt like. But honestly, I'd have preferred. I think it would have been a better option to have the Joaquin Buckley and the 41-year-old Stephen Thompson, who's even older than Jose Aldo, but I still think is more in, still closer to his ability is closer to like his prime than it is in Jose Aldo. You can definitely see that Jose Aldo's kind of slowed down. He's still a good striker, but he's just definitely not as explosive as he was in his younger years. Just expected, or as fast. But pretty much what happened, not what we expected to happen in this fight was Mario Batista. He was just kind of pushing Jose Aldo up against the cage and pretty much just controlling the fight like that through all 3 rounds. Never was no one really ever got dropped or looked like they were going to get caught in a submission. It was just Mario Batista controlling the whole fight. And man, it's just not overly. No, that was an overly exciting fight, like quite a few of these fights on this card. And I just personally, I don't think I want to see Jose Aldo on the main card again. And then onto the co-main event was a bantamweight championship bout between Juliana Pena versus Raquel Pennington. And Juliana Pena, she won this fight. It was kind of at moments of the fight, it was kind of reminiscent to her first fight against Amanda Nunes, because I think Raquel Pennington kind of had the better striking in the first round, and I would have given her the first round, but the fight was a split decision, 48-47, 48-47. No, yeah, 48-47, then 47-48, and then 48-47. That's confusing how they got that listed out there. But so Raquel Pennington, I would say probably won the first round, and then Juliana Pena, she won the second round, and that was the like closest moment to the fight getting stopped is when she was able to land some good strikes and end up on Raquel Pennington's back and looked like she had her in a decent rear naked choke there for a while, for a minute, and it was very reminiscent of the how she beat Amanda Nunes in the second round. Similarly, But then the fight continued, and it looked like Juliana Pena was getting kind of the edge in the striking game, even into the second round, and then into the third round. But then into the fourth and fifth round, Raquel Pennington kind of started uh, going to her ground game, and she was able to kind of get moments where she was in control of the fight with Juliana Pena on the ground and laying some ground and pound, but nothing too serious, nothing close to getting the finish. But she still was controlling the fight, and but I would say Juliana Pena was really the only one close enough to actually getting a stop there in the second round. But the fight ended up being, like we said, a split decision. And a lot of people probably disagreed with that because it was 48-47, 47-48, and then 48-47. But honestly, I had the fight. I had Raquel Pennington winning this fight, and I had her winning the first and the fourth and the fifth round. But I guess Juliana Pena did enough to win it, and maybe it's more damage that she caused, or the fact that she was the closest one to actually getting a stoppage in this fight. But I just honestly wasn't impressed with that fight either, and I could see where people would disagree with the outcome, the decision of that fight, and I. I'm kind of, even though I hadn't been following her for too long, I'm kind of a Kayla Harrison fan, and hopefully we get to see a healthy Kayla Harrison face either Raquel Pennington or Juliana Pena to kind of set up maybe her shot at the women's bantamweight title. But hopefully we get a healthy Kayla Harrison, because I think if we do, I just with the performance that we saw from Juliana Pena, who you gotta understand that she was coming back from not fighting for like more than 2 years, and she still looked really good. She looked as good as she did in the first fight where she beat just in her two fights against Amanda Nunes, and then the one where she beat her. But I think a healthy Kayla Harrison could definitely take the title from either one of these went either one of these ladies, Juliana Pena or Raquel Pennington. But there's definitely some bad scoring and bad judging throughout the whole card. So that's not really any surprise that it ended up being a bad call. There was some bad refereeing in some of these fights too. There was the uh, Cesar Almeida versus the Igor Porteria. There was so many eye pokes and groin strikes in that fight. I don't know how Cesar Almeida didn't get disqualified or get several points taken away. Yeah, that ref, I think they literally threw him out of the stadium after that fight. But anyway, so now on to the main event. We have a light heavyweight bout between the champion Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree. And kind of like the Kayla Harrison uh, story, the backstory of her. There's some stories about Alex Pereira having some issues in training camp and maybe being sick coming into this fight. Well, early on in the fight, you maybe could say that was kind of affecting him because he just really just didn't do a whole lot in the first two rounds. And Khalil Rountree's probably his best shot and hit on Alex Pereira was probably in the second quarter, where Alex Pereira threw a kick and he caught the kick and spun Alex Pereira around and then landed a pretty good shot, like at the back of the head of Alex Pereira. But really, after that, it felt kind of like Alex Pereira was kind of taking some of the early rounds off, not throwing a lot. So you could have said that through the first two, maybe even part of the third round, that Lil Rountree was winning. I think he was landing more significant strikes, but the intelligence, the fighting IQ of Alex Pereira is so good, and obviously him being sick didn't affect his cardio that much, because I think he was taking those rounds off because he knew that Khalil Rountree Jr. was gonna gas himself out with the punches and stuff that he was throwing. He was putting everything in them. He was definitely looking for a knockout on Alex Pereira, but he was just dead basically. And towards the end of the third and in the fourth quarter, he could barely lift his arms. He was just barely able to throw. And then Alex Pereira just started picking him apart. One of the most cringe moments of that fight is when I think it was Joe Rogan saying that there was a part of Khalil Rountree's face was like flapping. I guess his nose had a cut in it and it was flapping around, and he was just had a crimson mask from the damage that Alex Pereira was putting on him, and he just completely overwhelmed him until he wilted in the fourth round with TKO punches, and that was let's see, that was at 4:32 of the fourth round, and Alex Pereira just continuing to be impressive. Has defended the belt 3 times, has fought what 3 or 4 times this year. Just a fighting champion, and just no debate whether he's one of the best fighters in the UFC, maybe the most popular and the biggest superstar currently in the UFC, and well deserved, well deserved. It's I'm interested to see if he does decide to go to heavyweight or move back down to middleweight. But that was an impressive fight, not just from Alex Pereira getting the victory, but just the heart and the fight that Khalil Rountree uh, you saw from him. And it would be interesting if these guys do have a rematch, if they maybe don't have it in Salt Lake City, like a, a, a city that's above sea level, to where that drains people because of the altitude. And see if Khalil Rountree's stamina would be any better in a place where they're not above altitude. But I think it'll definitely take some impressive wins by Khalil Rountree and some get back fights before his name is noted in the light heavyweight title contender. Because I was kind of surprised he even got this fight to begin with, because he was only ranked 8th in the light heavyweight division. So maybe just some other fighters weren't healthy or weren't prepared to fight him. But there's just because of this loss, there should be several light heavyweight contenders ahead of him. But still, it was an okay night. Definitely the best 2 fights in my opinion were definitely the Joaquin Buckley Stephen Thompson fight and the Alex Pereira Khalil Rountree uh, Jr. fight. Now, you could say the majority of the rest of the card was pretty mid. But let's look at before I get out of here. Let's look at these fighter bonuses that were received. So fight of the night: Alex Pereira versus Khalil Rountree. Well deserved. I wouldn't die on any hill trying to argue with that. And then you got Joaquin Buckley for a performance of the night, which I wish they just called this knockout of the night. And then you have Ryan Spain for also a performance of the night. And like that, I wish they would just call it submission of the night, like they used to. It would be nice if they just had 3 bonuses for fight of the night, knockout of the night, and Ryan Spain. I don't really understand why they changed that title to performance of the night. But anyways, I definitely think the right fighters got those bonuses. So that's UFC 307. Alex Pereira versus Roundtree Jr. It was a decent card, but I think it could have been a lot better if there would have been a couple more finishes on the main card. But that's part of the game. You're not always going to get those highlight knockouts or those crazy submissions. But I guess we'll see you next time for UFC 308. 308. I'm trying to see who it is. That should be good. That's building up to be a pretty impressive card with your Ilia Topuria, the champion, versus Max Holloway, who just had that crazy knockout, last second knockout of Justin Gaethje, and then possibly I don't know how many times this fight has been rebooked, but maybe we'll get to see middleweight, the middleweight bout between Robert Whitaker versus Hamzat Chimaev. It would be nice. I feel that fight's been like rebooked like 3, 4, 5 times, but it'd be nice to finally get to see that. But yeah, just the Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway. Getting to see Max Holloway is definitely enough to get me excited. Anyway, I think that's about all I have for you. So let's see. I think we'll get out of here. So can I get a menu?